In a wide stretch of quiet farmland, a man known as Boss sat mounted on his horse, eyes fixed on the land spreading before him. Close by, a small crew of herdsmen waited with the cattle. Far off, another man named Mose was laboring alone in his field when riders suddenly appeared. He straightened up and walked toward them. Once their gear was unpacked, the men came together to share a meal. Not long after, rain began falling hard from the sky, and it showed no sign of stopping.
See ya.
Night settled in. While Boss and Charley spoke quietly, Boss remarked he hadn't witnessed rain like this since the days of Noah. Mose laughed, joking that Boss wouldn't remember since he'd been there himself. Morning arrived, yet the rain still hammered down. The men gathered near the fire, passing time with cards. Eventually, Charley and Boss quit the game, fed up with Button's constant cheating. Boss cautioned Button, warning him never to trade a man's trust just to win a hand of cards.
Man's trust is a valuable thing, Button. You don't want to lose it for a handful of cards.
After some time passed, the rain finally let up. Boss sent Button to help Mose clean the mess left behind. Nearby, Charley worked to free a wagon buried deep in the mud. Mose offered his help, but Charley waved him off, saying he had it handled.
Looks like you could use a little muscle there, Charley.
Mose returned to working alongside Button, and the two carried on together. Button admitted he feared Charley didn't care much for him. Mose reassured him, telling Button not to dwell on it, then shared how he himself first came to ride with Boss.
Had some pause about hiring me on.
Boss had hesitated about hiring Mose, believing the man was too large to ride well or manage cattle. He even worried Mose would eat more than his share, but Charley spoke on Mose's behalf and convinced Boss to take him on.
Charley there that talked him into it, and I ain't one to take a man's confidence lightly.
Later, Mose and Charley strained together, shoving the wagon while Button urged the horse forward, finally pulling it free from the sucking mud. Exhausted, Button suddenly spotted riders in the distance and shouted for the others to look. As they stood to see, they realized it was Boss driving the horses toward them. Mose watched with clear admiration as Boss brought them in.
Well, Boss sure can cowboy, can he?
Later still, Boss and Charley spoke privately about what lay ahead. Charley warned the next town was a long ride and supplies were running low. Boss decided Mose would ride alone to the nearby town of Fort Harmon to resupply.
Mose! You'll have to ride back that town we passed a ways back.
Button asked to go instead, but Boss refused outright, sparking Button's anger. Mose rode out while the others remained behind at camp. As evening crept in, Button grew uneasy about Mose's delay. Boss asked Charley if he thought Mose had been distracted by cards, but Charley doubted it. He admitted it might have been wiser if he had gone himself. Concern gnawed at them. Boss and Charley decided to ride into town to search for Mose, leaving Button behind to guard the herd and wagon. Button argued to come along, insisting no one had come near since they camped. Boss told him he'd rest easier knowing someone stayed behind to watch over things.
I always feel better about leaving the wagon if someone's close around.
The two men rode out, crossing a shallow river and pressing toward town. Before reaching it, they checked their weapons. Their first stop was a stable run by a man named Percy. They handed over their horses for feed and shelter. Percy asked how long they planned to stay, and they told him only until they found the man they were after. Percy said he might be able to help, explaining he'd been around town long enough to know most things that happened there. As they talked, Charley noticed Mose's wagon and asked about him. Percy hesitated before admitting Mose had crossed paths with some of the town's cattlemen and ended up locked in jail.
Yeah, lucky to get shot in the back, if you know what I mean.
Boss and Charley went straight to the jailhouse, where they met Marshal Poole and Denton Baxter, a wealthy rancher who effectively controlled the town. Baxter held contempt for free-grazing cattlemen like Boss and used his influence to push them out.
Did you have a friend of ours in your jail? His name's Mose.
Marshal Poole claimed Mose had started a fight in the general store. Boss refused to accept that and instead asked what charges were filed. Poole listed them coldly, starting a brawl, disturbing the peace, and causing a public nuisance.
Disturbing the peace, creating a public nuisance, take your pick.
Boss said he'd come to collect Mose. Poole replied he could pay the fines and take him. Each charge cost $50, a steep sum. As Charley reacted, Denton Baxter stepped forward, interrupting and introducing himself.
I've been waiting for you, Mr. Spearman. My name's Denton Baxter.
Baxter spoke with calm hostility, explaining how deeply the town despised men like them. He boasted about owning the largest ranch in the region and made it clear he wanted no free-range cattle feeding off his land. Boss reminded him that open grazing was lawful, but Baxter coldly replied that laws had a way of changing.
His cattle are gonna take the feed off my cattle on this.
He ordered them to collect their man and leave town by morning. Turning to Poole, Baxter commanded him to release Mose at once.
You let Mr. Spearman fetch his man so he can be on his way.
When they reached the cell, they found Mose battered and bloodied. Charley stepped closer, taking in the injuries, then helped lift him to his feet. They brought him back to Percy, but it was clear Mose was badly hurt. Asking about a doctor, Percy told them where to find one.
House up behind the barn by the church.
Supporting Mose between them, Boss and Charley brought him to Dr. Barlow. After examining the wounds, Barlow said the injuries were days old and should have been treated much sooner. Boss explained Mose had been jailed, preventing him from receiving care.
Marshal had him and you don't keep a friendly jail.
Barlow discovered several broken ribs. Sue Barlow removed Mose's shirt and returned with bandages and salt. When Barlow tried to give him water, Mose couldn't swallow. He asked Boss and Charley to wait outside while he began treatment.
Two of you can wait in the parlor.
Later, when the treatment ended, Boss and Charley helped Mose onto his horse. Barlow warned that travel would worsen his condition, but Boss said they had no choice. When Boss asked the price, Barlow refused payment, saying Mose had already evened things by injuring Baxter's men.
I figured I made enough off the damage he did to Baxter's men.
After shaking Barlow's hand, Boss mounted up and they rode out with Mose. As they traveled, Boss remarked on Barlow's fine wife. The men spoke warmly about the couple, admiring Barlow's hard work and simple life.
Doc looks like a real hard-working fella. Probably working away on making some little ones, too.
Finally, they returned to camp. Their dog Tig ran to greet them, but Button was nowhere in sight. Exhausted, the men settled down to rest.
Goddamn kid.
Boss fretted over Button, while Charley tried to reassure him, pointing out that anyone willing to harm Button would have had to get through the wagon first.
When done him harm, they'd have gone through the wagon.
As they spoke, Button appeared riding his horse. Boss demanded to know where he had been, but Button's attention was fixed on Mose. He asked what had happened, and Boss tried to make it sound less severe than it was.
A little trouble in that town.
Looks like more than a little.
Boss then stormed off. Button turned to Charley, questioning if he had done something wrong. Charley urged patience. Button then mentioned that 3 riders had been scouting the herd that morning, alarming Charley. When asked where, Button explained they were half a mile away, observing the cattle. The 3 men rode to the spot, only to find 4 figures now watching them.
Same ones?
4 this time.
Charley and Boss suspected Baxter's men were attempting to seize the herd, but Button argued that if Baxter wanted it, he could have kept it in town.
If he was gonna take the herd, why not just keep you in that town?
After discussion, the men resolved to confront the strangers. As they approached, the men scattered. Later, Charley asked Boss how long they had worked together. Boss said 9 years. Charley wondered whether they should fight or flee, leaving the cattle behind. Charley questioned if the cattle were worth dying for, but Boss insisted it wasn't about the herd. It was about a man asserting control over another.
Cows is one thing, but one man telling another man where he can go in this country is something else.
Recalling the way Baxter treated them in jail, Boss agreed they owed a debt for Moses' beating. Charley went back to prepare the saddles for the return trip.
Keep a sharp eye out.
Boss instructed Button to stay hidden behind the wagon, keeping him out of sight from any potential threat.
Button, you keep the wagon for cover. I don't want to see you out in the open.
Later that night, Boss and Charley silently approached the men observing the herd. They made the men hear the click of guns and issued a warning. Any movement would mean death.
One twitch, and you're in hell.
They demanded the men surrender their weapons. Boss singled out the man with a bad back, the same who had assaulted Mose, and struck him. Beginning an intense interrogation about Baxter's riders. The man smugly revealed that the riders were already heading toward their wagon, angering Boss further, who hit him again. Boss instructed Charley to hand over the saddlebags. He then ordered the men to cover their faces and, when one resisted, struck him with the gun's butt. He forced them to lie face down. Charley released the horses so they couldn't flee. Boss stopped Charley from shooting the man who had attacked Mose. Together, Boss and Charley returned to camp. Upon arrival, the scene was grim. Button lay on the ground, bleeding, and Tig was gone. Boss rushed to Button and confirmed to Charley that he was still alive.
Shot the boy, but he's alive.
Charley checked on Mose and discovered he had been shot in the head. Boss instructed Charley to fetch whiskey and a lantern to treat Button. Nearby, their dog lay dead. Charley froze in rage, knowing they had to remove the bullet for Button to survive. The next morning, Charley reported progress, but Boss remained uncertain. Button had lost much blood. The head injury could have lifelong effects. Charley said he did all he could, but now Button needed a doctor. Boss insisted on staying to exact revenge, but Charley argued they couldn't face Baxter alone.
If you want to come along, fine, we'll go together. Otherwise,
Charley promised to support Boss no matter what. Button's care came first. Boss worried that Baxter might attack if they returned to town. Charley insisted Button deserved every chance, convincing Boss to agree while still harboring thoughts of vengeance. If the marshal interfered, Boss vowed he would deal with him as well.
I aim to kill Baxter and those that done this. And if that marshal gets in the way, I'm gonna kill him too.
Boss carefully considered his options. Charley expressed no hesitation about confronting any adversary. The following morning, Charley buried Mose. Boss commended Charley and suggested placing Tig with Mose. Charley agreed, noting the dog had always been Mose's companion. Charley offered Boss a chance to speak, but Boss, still angry at fate for Mose's death, remained silent.
well, he sure as hell wasn't one to complain. Woke with a smile. Seemed like he could keep it there all day.
Later, Boss noticed Charley appeared troubled. He asked if Charley was all right, but Charley avoided answering. Boss realized that, despite seldom discussing personal matters, Charley's words over the past days revealed the depth of their shared history. Boss asked if Charley wanted to talk, but he refused.
Hey, Charley?
Don't stand behind me, boss.
Finally, in quiet moments, Charley began opening up. As a boy, he and a friend had wandered the woods. There, he had killed his first man. Later, he enlisted in the army. His unit was ambushed, leaving only a few survivors, who were placed into an elite squad. Charley became a relentless killer. When the war ended, he returned west. Men like him soon found work for Baxter, yet he never fully joined the system, maintaining his independence.
After that, I come west.
The next morning, Charley and Boss prepared to ride back to town. They placed Button in the wagon and rode to the Barlow home. Sue greeted them at the door, noting Dr. Barlow's absence, but allowed them in.
Here, put him in the examining room.
Sue showed them to the examining room for Button. Boss insisted he could hear fine when awake. But Sue explained she was checking for internal bleeding to ensure no skull fracture. She asked them to wait outside.
You know the way to the parlor. Sit down.
After some time, Sue confirmed there was no fracture, but warned of a severe concussion. She had cleaned the wound to prevent infection. Boss mentioned they had come so Dr. Barlow could check on Button. She explained that Baxter's men had taken him due to an urgent accident, but reassured them she would provide care.
Baxter's hands came and fetched him out to the ranch.
She asked what had truly happened. Boss explained that when Baxter's men appeared, he and Charley went to confront them, unaware that others were striking their camp at the same moment. He told her Mose had been killed and their dog was gone as well. Then he added that he intended to pay her for helping them. Sue said there was no need, but Boss refused to back down. Charley remained behind.
Please, sit.
While seated, Sue asked whether Button was his real name, and he confirmed it. She remarked that Button was still very young. Charley explained they had found him years earlier, when he was just a child. He spoke no English then, and survived among garbage.
Picked him up in a Texas town a few years back, living off cafe garbage.
Sue warned that townsfolk had seen them arrive and that the marshal worked for Baxter, which placed them in danger. She suggested wiring for a federal marshal, but Charley said even if one rode out immediately, it would take a week to arrive. It was not a real answer.
If he started riding today, he wouldn't make it for a week.
As they spoke, Boss returned with the money. He told Sue to do everything possible for Button. Then, the two men left. They went to see Percy. A heavy wind and storm had begun. After brief words, they placed their horses and wagon in his stable. Then they headed into town. Guns ready. Rain poured relentlessly. When they reached town, the streets were flooded. They crossed using a broken plank. Before Charley could follow, the wood was swept away. Nearby, a wooden structure collapsed under the storm's force. Charley moved carefully toward Boss, testing each step to avoid deeper water. Suddenly, they saw a dog struggling in the flood. Determined to save it, Charley waded back and caught the animal. Its owner rushed over, grateful. He thanked Charley and offered to buy them coffee for their kindness, leading them into the cafe. As they sat with the dog's owner, the marshal entered the diner. Seeing him, Boss and Charley quietly placed money on the table. They thanked the man for the coffee and stood to leave. As they walked out, the marshal stared at them. They kept moving, but he called out, saying he wanted a word. They turned and said they wanted a word with him as well.
And we'll be having more than that with you, Marshal.
The marshal said he held a warrant for assaulting Baxter's men. Boss and Charley raised Button's injuries and Moses' death, asking if warrants existed for that too. They told the townspeople Baxter's men had killed Mose and beaten a 16-year-old boy.
Your marshal here ain't gonna do nothing about it.
The marshal turned to the crowd, warning that anyone siding with Boss and Charley would face trouble. He looked back at them and said he would be seeing them soon.
But I'll be seeing you gents real soon.
Outside the diner, Charley worried the marshal would gather his men and arrest them. He wanted to act immediately, but Boss refused. This angered Charley. They then went to check on Button. Sue invited them inside, where Button lay resting. He was improving. They sat for tea, joking about their rough lives. Sue asked if either man was married, and Boss revealed he once had been.
I married once. Never know that, did you, Charley?
Charley was surprised. He hadn't known. Boss said he had a wife and child, but both died from typhus. After that, he couldn't remain at home. That was why he became a free grazer. Now, he said, if Button lived, he would make sure the boy had a home.
If Button lives, I swear I aim to see to it there's a home he's sleeping in.
After saying this, Boss rose and went to see Button, leaving Charley and Sue at the table. Charley said he had ridden with Boss for 10 years, yet never knew he'd been married. Sue offered them the guest room, but Charley said staying would only bring her trouble with Baxter and the marshal.
We have a spare room. It's yours if you want it.
Couldn't do that, man.
Later that night, while Charley slept, Sue came to wake him. Startled, thinking she was one of Baxter's men, he drew his gun. Before it escalated, Boss rushed in, stepping between them. "It's all right, Johnny." Charley then left the house into the rain. Boss followed. Boss said it wasn't his fault, that Sue shouldn't have surprised him. But Charley insisted it was and said he'd frightened her.
Scared that woman half to death.
Yeah, scared me a little bit too.
Afterward, they returned to town and entered the cafe. They ordered 2 whiskeys, but no one served them. Frustrated, Charley threw a glass toward the bartender. The dog's owner spoke up, urging service, saying they were good men. But the bartender refused, fearing Baxter.
Baxter, the owner?
That's right.
Enraged, Charley fired a shot into the air. The bartender, shaken, finally poured the drinks. The dog's owner introduced his 2 sons. He asked if what they'd said earlier was true. Boss confirmed it was Sue treating Button. The man corrected him, saying Sue was not the doctor's wife, but his sister.
Well, she makes somebody a fine wife. That's his sister.
Other townspeople joined the uneasy discussion. A store owner spoke, the same man whose shop had witnessed Moses' beating. He admitted he saw it all, saying Mose had overpowered Baxter's best gunman, Butler, before being ambushed.
That big fella drove the hell out of them other three.
After leaving the cafe, Boss and Charlie met Percy, the stable owner, who quietly warned them deputies were hiding near the stables, waiting inside their wagon. Marshal Poole remained at the jail, confident his men would capture them. Instead of fleeing, Boss and Charlie rode straight to the jailhouse. They found Poole alone. Boss used chloroform taken from the doctor's shelf to knock him unconscious.
That.
Chloroform. Stole it from the dock.
They locked the marshal in his own cell and waited for the deputies. One by one, they arrived and were ambushed, each chained inside the cells they once guarded. With the threat contained, they returned to the Barlow home. Button was awake and stable. Sue welcomed them with breakfast. She told Button to rest as the two men stepped out of the bedroom. Button asked about Mose.
Mose?
I'll be alone in a minute, Charlie.
Boss stayed behind while Charlie moved to the living room. He noticed mud tracked across the floor from their shoes. He glimpsed Sue through the partially open door, who quickly closed it. She joined him inside. While speaking, Charlie assumed Barlow was her husband.
It's just that we've been thinking that you and the doc was husband and wife.
Sue clarified they were siblings, though Charlie had been mistaken about the couple's relationship. When ready to leave, Boss asked Charlie if he would depart without expressing his feelings. After hesitation, Charlie returned to Sue's door and confessed he was not the man she believed, but she reassured him that she had already seen the truth of his character.
There might be little bits, but they're enough for a woman who looks.
Sue smiled softly and handed Charlie a small locket, urging him to keep it for luck before they departed to face Baxter's forces. The two men left. Boss visited the jail to rouse the deputies before confronting the enemy. He and Charlie made a stop at the general store. Boss selected the finest Swiss chocolates and Cuban cigars, joking that if this were their last day, they should enjoy it.
Now, what's the most expensive you got?
He handed a cigar to Percy in gratitude for his help. Charlie slipped Percy a folded note with instructions. If Charlie did not survive, Percy was to sell his saddle and equipment and use the money to gift Sue a new tea set, replacing the one broken in a past violent episode.
And my good saddle and my guns to buy a tea set for Miss Barlow, Charley Waite.
With preparations complete, the men sat outside, smoking, waiting for Baxter's arrival. Baxter located the marshal and deputies, tying them in the jailhouse. Moments later, Baxter and his men appeared in formation.
Finish these later.
Charlie turned to Boss and revealed his full name. Charles Postal Waite. He asked for Boss's in return. Boss hesitated, then quietly admitted his true name, Blue Bonnet Spearman, making Charlie swear never to reveal it.
Just Blue Bonnet Spearman, and don't you tell no one.
Charlie stepped forward, shooting Butler, the man who had killed Mose and nearly ended Button's life, squarely between the eyes. The single gunshot shattered silence, igniting a brutal firefight. Bullets tore through windows and walls as the battle spilled into the muddy street. Though outnumbered, Boss, Charlie, and Percy held their ground with unwavering precision. Baxter entered the Barlow house, aiming at Button. Barlow warned him that harming the boy would prevent treatment, so Baxter seized Barlow instead. Outside, Charlie and Boss overpowered Baxter's men. A store owner joined the fight. When Charlie saw Baxter's man crawling, he moved to shoot him, but Boss and the store owner intervened.
Step aside!
Listen to him, son.
Sue, following Baxter, Barlow, and Button into town, was taken hostage. The townspeople gained courage and joined Boss and Charley. As Baxter confronted them with Button, forcing the two to consider surrender, Charley argued that their only chance to save Button was compliance while ready.
The only chance for him or us when we walk up there is these guns.
Sue rushed to cover Button, lying on the ground. Boss and Charley faced Baxter in a tense standoff. The townspeople sided with them, causing Baxter's men to hesitate. Button, summoning remaining strength, prepared to survive. The first shot ignited a fierce exchange. Charley and Boss fought with skill and determination. By the end, all of Baxter's men, including Marshal Poole and his deputies, were killed. Baxter, bleeding and cornered, barricaded himself inside the jailhouse. Boss stormed in, ending the confrontation in a brutal final shootout. Baxter lay fatally wounded, refusing the last shot.
I wish I could bullet to ease your pain, you son of a bitch.
With the town freed, peace began returning. Dr. Barlow tended the wounded. Once calm returned, Charley called Sue to meet him at the cafe.
Your sister, if she's willing.
Sue arrived. Charley revealed he intended to leave. She expressed hope for a future together, insisting she wasn't afraid of him and would wait. Charley wasn't ready, but she promised she would wait for his return.
And I'm not gonna wait forever, but I am gonna wait.
Eventually, Charley returned to Sue. Admitting his love, though initially disappointed, she accepted his proposal. Boss and Charley resolved to leave life on the trail behind. They would deliver their last herd and begin work at the cafe now that Baxter was dead. Charley bid Sue farewell, promising to return, and the two men rode off for their final task on the trail.